Throughout the process of making my main product and ancillary products, it was important to gain feedback, in particular audience feedback, from my target audience. The importance of doing this is to make sure that the product you're making is effective in captivating the audience's interest, essentially resulting in people wanting to watch the final product. Audience feedback was used a lot throughout the process, including to little details such as fonts and titles, in order to get it correct and successfully target the audience. One of the things I gained audience feedback on was my title. I asked my audience to supply titles to me which they felt would be appropriate. I then went on to take a vote from them after I'd shortlisted them and allowed them to choose what title they thought summed up my film effectively. This is important as the title was something that initially presented to the audience with them knowing little about the film, so they can make a decision on whether they want to watch it or not. By allowing them to choose the title, it essentially implies that they like that title, therefore would watch it. Another aspect of my main product that I relied on audience feedback for was my short film first edit. I submitted a first edit of my short film and then asked for feedback regarding specific technical areas as well as general areas. When receiving these, I was able to make alterations to suit the audience and their preferences, which I hope will make the product successful in the future. An example of feedback I gathered from this piece of research was to use cross dissolves when the images in the scrapbook were reached in reality. Therefore, I applied this to my film, reflecting the audience's preferences within my short film. Similarly, I used audience feedback to determine how I applied sound within my main product. Initially, I was uncertain of whether to have dialogue or not. Therefore, I devised an online poll, as well as conducting a questionnaire. I used mainly my target audience, but also those of older ages, therefore allowing me to gather general opinions on it. The responses suggested that I shouldn't use dialogue, as they said there wouldn't be much to say about my sequence, and it would be cuter if I omitted dialogue. I decided to apply this and develop my decision with a soundtrack to keep them intrigued, but as well as reflect their preference. Not only did I rely on audience feedback for my main product, but I also investigated into aspects of my ancillary products, for example, the poster. I initially designed 3 posters that could potentially represent my short film. However, I decided that I present all 3 to members of target audience and allow them to vote for their favourite. I considered this when editing and taking my image, and tried to apply what the audience had suggested, however subverted this due to it not looking as good as I initially planned. A majority of the audience research I conducted was through questionnaires, to gain a high response rate and to allow me to specifically choose the participants, often who fit into my target audience, so the results represent the people who will be watching my short film. I did use focus groups, however found the results were harder to identify as they weren't all subjective, therefore you cannot always decide what the response was as they're open for interpretation. One reason in particular it's important to consider and apply audience feedback is because it allows for the audience to experience escapism, for example, as suggested by uses in gratifications theory. My idea was to construct this product and allow the audience to subvert from their own lives and admire the sweet theme throughout the product. This was effectively done throughout the audience's feedback, which suggested that I omit dialogue.